Hello. Okay, if you're in a rush, I'd say get a PC if you're doing CS or engineering, and get a Mac if you're doing anything else. As for why I think that, well, that's the rest of the video. So first off, let's talk about why we want a laptop and what we're looking for exactly in a laptop. Well, a laptop is kind of a no-brainer if you're going to be doing university, right? You're going to be spending many hours on campus doing work, attending lectures, taking notes and stuff, and you're going to want a laptop for that. You're not going to be lugging around this giant desktop around on campus, right? You're going to want a laptop, something that fits in your backpack, you can carry it around, nice, thin, and light. But yeah, what are we looking for in a laptop? Well, we want it to be cheap, of course. We want it to be affordable, and we want it to be able to run the software that we need. That's the most important thing, I'd argue. We also want some good hardware, so good battery life, good portability, so ideally something very thin and light. We want something that has a good display, probably a good keyboard, because most majors are going to require you to do a lot of writing. If you're in psychology, you're going to be writing lots of papers. If you're engineering, lots of lab reports and stuff. Any STEM course, lots of lab reports. Humanities, you're going to be doing lots of writing, lots of papers. So a good keyboard is definitely very important. And last but not least, we want it to be reliable for many years to come. We don't want it to just go die out of the blue, you know? So now that we've established that you should get a laptop and the qualities that we want in that laptop, which one should you get? Should you get a Windows laptop or a Mac laptop? PC or Mac? Age-old debate, but we're tackling it today from a student perspective. I'm an Eng person, so I'm coming from an Eng-focused perspective, but I'll try to account for a bunch of different student perspectives. Also, I am a Mac user primarily. I also do have a Windows PC, but that's kind of just there. I primarily use my MacBook for all my schoolwork and stuff, so I'll be coming also from a Mac user perspective, but I'll also try to account for Windows as well. So let's get started. So first off, let's talk about affordability. I think PCs win in this aspect because you have a lot of different price options for PCs. You can get a cheap PC for $300, $400. Granted, those aren't going to be very high quality, but they'll get the job done. But yeah, generally PCs have a wider range of options to choose from, whereas Macs, cheapest MacBook right now is the MacBook Air M4, which normally retails for I think $999, and that gives you 16 gigabytes of RAM and 256 gigs of SSD. And that's the base model, which I think is enough for most people, unless you're in engineering or in CS. I also should mention that Apple is doing a student sale where they discount the price of their laptops for I think $100 off, and they also give you a free accessory along with it, so you can pick AirPods or a Magic Mouse. That's pretty neat. But overall, I think PC is still better because of how many options there are and all the different price points you get, all the different models you get, all the different brands. Whereas with MacBooks, you're going to be spending close to, if not over, $1,000. And also, I should mention, unless you're doing something computer intensive, the base model for the MacBook Air is enough. Apple charges an arm and a leg just for upgrading your storage or your RAM, and I don't advise you to actually go to those upgrades. If you want more storage, then definitely just buy an external SSD. You do not want to pay $400 just to double your storage. That said, for what you're paying, I think the M4 MacBook Air is still a pretty sweet value, because with that around $1,000 purchase, you're getting really good hardware. You're getting a laptop that absolutely nails the basics. Really good speakers, really good keyboard, got a really sharp display. It's super thin and it's super light, which makes it really nice and portable. And I think probably the most important thing, the battery life. The M4 MacBook Air has incredible battery life. You are not going to run out of battery doing just regular stuff during the day. I have an M1 MacBook Air. This is the laptop that came out in 2020. This is the first Apple Silicon MacBook, and it still lasts me pretty much the whole day. I don't have to worry about charging it that much. Just doing light use and stuff. The MacBook Air has consistently just been a very excellent student laptop for the past few years. Thin, light, reliable for years to come, and it's got really excellent performance as well. You are not going to feel this laptop be slow. And all of these things, all of these qualities are available on various Windows PCs, but I don't think there's anything that bundles it all together into a single package for a better price than the MacBook Air M4. The overall package you get with the MacBook Air is just really hard to beat. But the biggest flaw of the MacBook Air is, well, macOS. For the most part, right, macOS is fine. And for most people, macOS is fine. It can run Microsoft Office, it can run a bunch of programs that Windows runs. But at the end of the day, a lot of stuff is just written for Windows first. And sometimes for Engine CS, there are programs for your courses that just don't run on Mac. Like for example, I'm in automation engineering, and for our C++ course, we need a software called Visual Studio. Not Visual Studio Code, which runs on both Mac and Windows, Visual Studio, and that only runs on Windows. So I actually couldn't run that software natively on macOS on my MacBook. And that explains why I have this PC right over here. This is specifically just for the Windows only apps that my courses require me to have. So yeah, software compatibility is a pretty big issue if you're in Eng and CS, but for most other people, you're gonna be using your laptop primarily to access the web, watch lectures, write documents, and those are things that work fine on macOS, right? It can run Microsoft Word, it can run Google Chrome, it can run internet browsers of your choice. So for that, the MacBook is fine, and that's why I'd still say the MacBook Air is a better choice for most people, unless you're an Eng and CS. And if you're an Eng and CS, get a Windows PC just for the software compatibility. I should also mention that you can run a virtual machine on a MacBook. So a virtual machine is basically like a fake computer running inside your actual computer. You're giving some of your computer's resources to a fake computer or a computer inside your computer. But basically by doing that, you can run Windows on your Mac. And there are a bunch of really excellent tutorials that you can follow to do that. I've actually linked the one that I use up there. And I actually did run Windows on my MacBook through a virtual machine for a couple months before I got this guy. Oh, that's a fun sound. And it actually worked fine for my uses, aka coding. But I wouldn't recommend doing this for two reasons. One, it's impractical for the average person. The average person does not want to go through all those hoops to download, install a virtual machine, and then install Windows on like a virtual machine. Like the average person just wants to buy a computer and then have it work. They don't want to spend all this time setting it up and customizing it, just trying to get it to run the software they want to run. And then even after you set it up, the performance is going to be kind of mid compared to if you had just a Windows PC from the get-go. Because the virtual machine is essentially taking like a bit of your computer's resources and then simulating a fake computer on your computer, so it's not going to run too well. Like for simple stuff like just coding in a code editor, it worked fine for me, but then I remember I tried to run a Lego Star Wars game on it and it just turned into a PowerPoint slideshow. But it does run fine on this Windows PC. And the second reason for not setting up a virtual machine is these things eat up storage. Like I think I used up 100 gigabytes just setting up the virtual machine because it has to store the whole operating system of Windows and the virtual machine software and whatever software you're installing on the virtual machine, and all of that eats into your storage. And if you're getting a base model MacBook Air, you're already kind of low on storage, right? You're only getting 256 gigabytes of storage. For the average person who's just using it to browse the internet and write Word files, that's fine. But if you're running a virtual machine, you're kind of cooked. That's like half of your storage just nuked away. And I had the virtual machine, but then I ended up deleting it because it was just taking up too much storage. And like we mentioned before, upgrading the storage on a MacBook is ridiculously expensive. It's hundreds of dollars just to increase the storage by one tier. And as students, we're already in so much debt. We're just trying to save as much money as we can, you know? So overall, my recommendations, always look ahead if you can, right? If you're just getting into university, if you're like an incoming first year, well, first of all, congratulations. Second, see if you can see what courses you're taking and like what different types of software you need. Like sometimes professors will say, oh, you want a computer with this kind of spec running this kind of operating system because you're going to be needing to run this kind of software. And you can find these in like course outlines and course websites. And you can even reach out to upper years that are doing the same program as you, taking the same courses as you, and ask them for advice. Maybe go on like Reddit and stuff, see if other people have been asking the same thing. But overall, my recommendation is a base model MacBook Air 13-inch with the M4 chip, especially right now with the Apple student discount that gives you like $100 off the starting price, I think, and also an extra pair of AirPods, which I think are also really useful if you're a student. AirPods are great. Like I think that's just the best value laptop for pretty much anyone. And even though I wouldn't recommend getting a MacBook for a CS or an Eng student, I still prefer macOS as an operating system. I find it's just more polished than Windows. Even as an Eng student, I still use a MacBook as my personal computer. For school, I use this PC, and the reason why I have a PC and a Mac is because I found this PC for like really cheap. It was on sale during Boxing Day, so I just picked it up, and it doesn't take up too much space on my desk. But yeah, the MacBook Air, I think, is the best value laptop you can get if you're a student going into university. It's just like the best overall package that gives you good battery life, good performance, good longevity, thin and light, portable, you know, the whole shebang. But that value proposition really starts to go down rapidly when you start upgrading, adding more RAM, getting a faster chip, getting more storage. And I honestly think the base configuration with 16 gigabytes of RAM and the chip is enough for vast majority of people. Like if you're just doing Word documents going on Chrome, you should be fine. And if you do need more storage, you could always buy an external SSD, just plug it into your laptop. And if you're not interested in a MacBook Air, oh, there's my screensaver. And if you're not interested in a MacBook Air, then I'd say the Windows equivalent of that is a Dell XPS laptop. And these are around the same price as a MacBook Air, kind of like in that like $1,000 range. But these are also really nice computers for studying and going to school with. And some of you might be wondering, ooh, what about the iPad? I think the iPad is more of a companion device rather than a full-on computer replacement. Like, I don't see these used as standalone devices as much as I see them being used as companion devices. Like maybe someone has like a Windows laptop and then an iPad that they use for taking notes and stuff. I see the iPad being used mostly as a note-taking device, basically. And some people even have like a keyboard case on it, like me. But I'm not using the iPad as a full-on computer replacement because even with iPadOS 26, while it's gonna become more like a computer, at the end of the day, it's still an iPad running iPad apps. And overall, the most important thing for us students is the apps that the computer can run. The iPad is super awesome, super cool, super versatile, but at the end of the day, it's not even an option. You can't even consider it if it can't run the software that you're looking to run. So if you are considering an iPad, then I think the best setup is getting the base model, cheapest iPad, like for taking notes and stuff and doing iPad stuff, and then doing like a PC or a Windows. No, wait, that's the same thing. And doing like a PC or a Mac laptop. So yeah, final verdict, before you buy any computer, do some research into what courses you're taking and what kind of software you need and what kind of computer the professors recommend, and buy that. Generally, PCs are better for CS and Eng degrees because of the software it can run, but for everyone else, the MacBook Air and macOS are a great option. All right, that's pretty much it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. Good luck with your studies, be awesome, and stay techie. Bye! So let's get started. Hello. Just doing like light use and stuff. Like I have Visual Studio, not Visual, is it Visual? To do that. I keep having like millennial pauses. Generally PC.